main challenge comes if we don't really understand what they want, and then we go ahead, we write something that is totally off the mark, and that, that's not going to work, and it's going to break that trust.
And you're right. Like most of the people, they're not able to decide what they want to do in their lives. They kill their inner energy or the signals they're getting from the nature that this is the right path or you should begin your journey there. Most of the people kill that feeling and try to, make a lifestyle and make a living.
We were being asked to do things that not only we'd never done before, but nobody had ever done before. Nobody had ever done.
Hello and welcome to Prolific Perspectives. This is Kamal Hassan, your host and founder of Prolific Animation Studios. We are all about exploring innovations, entrepreneurship, and how to be successful. Today we have an amazing guest with us, Douek, an award-winning TV and film composer, sound designer, and a CEO of Echo VR. Hey Joel, how are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to this talk. Yeah, absolutely.
Pleasure to have you with us today. Joel, I've been reading about you, many notable projects, many successes in your life, many achievements in your life. Would you please give your brief introduction to our audience?
Okay. It's been a kind of circuitous journey to get where I am today. And in a sense, I can confidently say that I never intended to end up as a film and TV composer. I had all kinds of different ideas of what I wanted to do with my life. I actually started off at medical school and did 2 years of medicine, and then I switched out of that and finished my degree in neuroscience and human sciences. So I was very much at the time thinking that I was a scientist. I wanted to be a scientist, at least in a medical sense. And then gradually it started to occur to me that maybe I just didn't have the focus or the patience to be a researcher or something like that. Once I finished college, I left the UK, which is where I'm from, London, and I finished London University there. And I moved to Paris initially. And I started working in, it's quite obscure, but, with a kind of textile designer. And I got the job through someone that he knew, my parents knew. And I think the understanding was that I would help him out with PR or something like that. So I speak French, and that was the idea. But the day I arrived, he just said to me, "I don't really need anyone to do that. I need someone who can build sculptures and lamps and things like that. Do you think you could do that?" And I went, "Yeah, I'll have a go." And he set me at a table with all these lamp parts and said, it's all sculptural lamps that he designed and stuff. And I started assembling them. And then I went out to the local hardware shop and I bought all the electrical components and stuff like that. And I finished the lamp. And he came up and he saw it and he said, you built the whole thing. I mean, how do you know how to wire it and the electricity? I said, because that's what I studied physics. That's how. So anyway, so that started, in a very different tack. And I ended up really working as a sculptor, in fact. And then, from there, I, as a lot of people do, kids that age in the early 20s, I taught English, good experience, tie me over, earn some money. And that led me to the next job, which was actually working for the United Nations, UNESCO initially in Paris. And because I had this scientific background, I was immediately put to work on something that was a very scientifically, let's say contextually scientifically problem, which was Chernobyl. This was 1989 at that point, so just 4 years after the explosion. And so I became, in a sense, a specialist on Chernobyl. And things I was trying to do needed a little bit more support from headquarters in New York. And so my next idea was, okay, I'm going to go and get a job, firstly an internship, and then a job at headquarters, UN headquarters in New York. So that's what I did. And I think it's kind of, in a sense, like that bravado of youth. It never really occurred to me that I couldn't do it, that anyone would say no. And I think that's an interesting kind of state of mind that I don't think I've been able to get back to. But it's something to, for me to remark. So I went there and I had an interview and I started, I got the job in the department there that kind of oversaw Chernobyl, and I was able to kind of get those wheels going. So in total, I worked in the United Nations system for 8 years. And I was a specialist in technological disasters in the Department of Humanitarian Affairs, which has since been renamed the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. I worked very closely with the Undersecretary General, I became a speechwriter, and I would write also reports to the Secretary General, to the Executive Council, and to the General Assembly. And that was kind of my job. And at a certain point, I kind of felt more and more out of place and more, I think, frustrated and even depressed. I mean, it was actually even affecting, my physical and mental health. The fact that I felt that I wasn't really making any kind of impact, and that maybe I was kind of in the wrong place. And most importantly, every day when I got to work, there would be a piece of paper on my desk, which was the bullet points from Reuters or the Associated Press, that basically listed roughly the 10 most terrible things that humanity had done in the last 24 hours. And some of them were natural disasters too. And so that's how my day would start. And, I started to question, like, why is this affecting me so much, not affecting anyone else to the same extent? And I just felt like, well, either they are not sensitive or I'm hypersensitive, but this is really not working for me very well. And it became kind of, somewhat obvious. And I shared my office at the time with this wonderful person who became a friend, Karuko, and she, we got to know each other. She knew about my other life as a musician and stuff. I was out every night playing gigs in New York. And she turned to me one day and said, Joel-san, maybe you shouldn't be trying to take the misery out of the world, which is what we do here, and you should be trying to put beauty into it because you're an artist. And you can do that, so you have this option. And it kind of struck me. It's like, I think she's right. Now, it took me a few more years to kind of, finish off things. But that's what I did. I thought, I'm not made for this. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, this is not where I should be. This is not where I could be most effective. So I left, and almost immediately I started, I did a masterclass in Pro Tools because I was quite good already at Pro Tools. I wanted to take it to the next level.
How old were you at that point of time? What was your age?
29, 30.
29. Oh, so you decided in the early 30s. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it was kind of, again, I hadn't set out to do this. When I left the UN, I didn't know what I was going to do. I started off thinking, well, maybe I could, work for some non-governmental organizations or, work in development. I had some good knowledge at that point of these bureaucratic systems. I knew how to write good letters and stuff like that. And with the interviews that I had, I just couldn't muster any enthusiasm, really. It just didn't feel right. And I was told, by certain, people, you're way overqualified. There's nothing we can do with you. You're too young, but you know too much. I'm sorry. So yeah, I just thought, well, I mean, the only other thing I know how to do to some extent is music. I've never earned any money from it, but maybe I can try that. And so I did this course in Pro Tools, and which was, in fact, weirdly enough, taught exactly across the road from the United Nations. So that was weird. And I did well in it because I developed some skills on the side, after work and stuff, using Pro Tools. And the teacher of that class was offered a job as music editor for Pokemon. And he couldn't do it. He was too busy. And he called me up and he said, Joel, do you want to do this job? And I said, what's a music editor? And he explained it to me. He said, you can do it. I know you can do it. You've got the chops. Don't worry about it. You can do it. So I said, well, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And so that's really where it started, is working as a music editor for initially this cartoon, working with the music that had been written by two really good composers, John Lasseter and Manny Corallo. And the difference of working with other people's music is, of course, you're not precious about it. Like, I was taught by, a person that was a senior music editor. She gave me the music library. She said, right, this is what we're doing. We're using the existing music that's been written to tell the emotional story that's happening here. So we have the script in front of us because it's still in Japanese at that point. And what we're going to do is help tell this story. And, so I kind of got the hang of it. And because I'm a drummer, percussionist, I think very much in rhythm. So I found it's quite easy for me to chuck things at the beat and line things up. And I realized that to make this work, well, you just could do anything. You just stretch it, pitch shift it, cover the transitions with the cymbals. Well, you do whatever had to be done to make it work without regard for, the preciousness of the music and stuff like that. And I think that was maybe the best education I could get as a composer, because I didn't have the attachment to the music. And it was just about helping to tell the story. and whatever it took to do that. And so kind of quite quickly, I started being given more and more episodes until I ended up as kind of the senior music editor. So that's kind of how it started. And then I guess a couple of years into that, a new show came about called Yu-Gi-Oh! And all of the senior composers are freelance. We're all freelancer. The senior composers just looked at it and said, "This is weird. I mean, this is just going to bomb. It's not going to, nobody's going to like this one." And they said, "We think this one," which is called Winx, I think, that one's going to be a real hit. So they all dumped Yu-Gi-Oh! And they went and wrote the music for Winx. And so it was up to us younglings. We all asked, like, would you want to do a demo for it? The thematic idea is based, we want the sound of kind of Lara Croft, Tomb Raiders. Okay, fantastic. And so I did a demo, and I was one of the people who got picked. And I think initially we were like maybe 5, 6, 7 composers, and it eventually kind of whittled down to 4. But what happened is that Winx, the other cartoon, totally bombed, never went anywhere. I don't think anyone's ever seen it or even heard of it. Yu-Gi-Oh! Went huge. It went huge. And I was working not only as a composer, but also as the music editor for it. So I was very, very deeply entwined in it. And until it even got to this kind of, I guess, more of an A-list or LA composer, was the original composer for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Movie. And he had to drop out, I think, for family or health reasons. And so we were called, like, can you fill in? And we've got 3 weeks to write all the music for this this movie. And did that. And it was, so, Yu-Gi-Oh! And then that led to the Ninja Turtles, which led to Sonic X and F-Zero and Shaman King and Ultimate Muscle, Kinnikuman, Man, and a bunch of other, little short things, crash test dummies and stuff like that. And really it was, we called it kind of boot camp because we just had to deliver. And it was not careless either. They was like revision after revision, because with cartoons, someone gets hit over the head. You need to musically hit that at the frame, not late and stuff. So it's very, very demanding because
so mostly you face challenges. You face challenges while you're working on those animated series, Sonic X and Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All of them. All of these anime and all of these cartoons. I think, as a general comment, writing music for animation is hard because it's, you're trying to hit every single moment that has a bit of comedy or a bit of drama or a bit of tragedy and stuff like that. You're hitting them all. And then you're writing thematic ideas. So there's another big part of it. Learning to do that is like, one of us would get asked, like, you do the theme for the baddie. And then that theme gets passed around. And then I or another one will use that melody and we'll start to build it into something that we're doing when the baddie shows up again. So understanding the leitmotif and how we use it, and also as a group of composers, learning to match each other's sounds, which we did really well. So it didn't feel like very disjointed. It felt like it was written by one person. And in that process, becoming, kind of reading each other's minds and becoming very close friends as well, and so that idea of the collaboration, which I think is something that music affords you, which maybe visual art doesn't so much, music is very highly collaborative. It has to be. You can't do everything.
So you work with many notable animation series, and you also work with Justin Timberlake. How was your experience?
So that came
I just
much later when that came much later when I was already in LA, and me and my oldest friend from London had come out here, and we started our virtual reality company, which I could just briefly say, we had been doing, Ben and myself, we'd been doing some of these kind of spatial audio in its early form for a decade already. And so when VR popped up, we already knew kind of how to manage it, and we made some kind of calls and got ourselves like trained a little bit on the latest technology, and just through friends in the film industry, we were introduced to people who started to do VR projects. And invariably, we would walk into these meetings that pretty much they're all visual effects houses. That's who was kind of doing VR, because it demanded like massive server banks and a great knowledge of visuals and how this is all going to work. And so we would go in and they would all say, you do audio, you do spatial audio. We go, yeah, that's what we do. And thank God for you. Oh God, we need someone. We don't understand anything. Like, can you help? And I'm like, yeah. Well, so that's what happened. And our names got passed around because not many people were doing it. And we learned on the job. And we decided also that when it came to location stuff, that was shooting, not just post-production, mixing in spatial audio, but that we kind of needed to manage the process from the beginning to the end. Because, a normal, let's say, it's filmic sound guy, that approach doesn't work. It doesn't translate into VR. So we needed to, we were suffering from that. We get handed these sound files and it's like, we can't use this because they recorded the two people like together and now we can't separate them in space. So we taught ourselves to use the equipment. We acquired more equipment. We started building partnerships with, Sennheiser and others. And you'll kind of recognize this theme throughout my life as just kind of just making it up as you go along. We're just saying we're gonna teach ourselves overnight and throw ourselves in. A lot of risk involved, but I guess ultimately some faith in ourselves. And between me and Ben, we had 25 years, so 50 years of experience in doing music and sound, and I think that counts.
Wow. So what inspired your decision to co-found Echo VR, and what opportunities did you see in the VR and AR audio space?
Based on this understanding that there was this big gap, basically, there wasn't anyone that was really doing it well, very few people, there was an opportunity for us to kind of step in there. And not only in the sense of just like, it's great, it's a job. It wasn't that. It's like, this is interesting what's happening with VR. And we kind of caught that bug in a sense, realizing that the experience of it, we always say, like, it's not, experience in VR is not like watching a movie where you're kind of objectively looking at something.
Yeah.
When you experience something in VR, you don't remember it as something that you saw. You remember it as something that you lived. Okay.
Absolutely.
And you have physiological reactions, including like, phobias and all that kind of stuff. And because of that, it can have immense influence over people, in our case, positively. It can change hearts and minds. And so we were doing social impact pieces, and we were very fortunate to be, flown. We spent a month in the Amazon jungle, in Suriname, and then in Ecuador with the tribes people, effectively creating this film on deforestation and the importance of leaving the indigenous tribes to kind of be the shepherds of the Amazon, and why that was important, and brought that film to the United Nations COP22 conference that was in Morocco that year, as a way of persuading world leaders and economic ministers to put money into protecting the Amazon. Why it was
so if I talk about Echo VR, the day you started, and if you compare it from today, is that a growth company or a lifestyle company still?
The way I usually put it, because I get a lot of, particularly on LinkedIn these days, like people saying, we want to help you scale your company and help you grow. And I just have to say to them, we don't want to grow. We really don't. Growth to us means that we have to take on a more managerial position, a more administrative position, rather than being on the ground and being the creative people. And so we've resisted that. And it's really what we have is myself and my partner. And then we have a good number of people who are brilliant at this or that or the other that we hire on a case-by-case basis. And we bring them on jobs depending on the size of the project. And so really what we built, and the same with my music company, One Track Music, is what it's about is it's an umbrella, effectively, corporate umbrella that provides some, let's say, legal protections and some some sense that you're legitimate, right? It's an umbrella under which we can do anything we want. That's it. And so in that sense, it doesn't conform to, what you might understand as a company that is on a trajectory and stuff like that. And that's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Right. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You first.
If you talk about the balancing discipline, you are from audio and visual background. So how do you effectively balance your creative work between audio and visual arts?
So at the time when I was doing it, I really didn't think about it too much. I mean, one of the things you learn, I think, as a creative is that, the process of creating things, it doesn't happen from the conscious thinking mind anyway.
Yes.
It doesn't really submit to it. So it's a different kind of mechanism. And I started doing it because I had accumulated some level of frustration, as a film and TV composer, because you go through so many iterations, so many revisions, and sometimes it feels like you're making it worse and worse because that's what the director's asking for. And so I was very comfortable with the idea, and it's very important as a film and TV composer to say, your job is to serve someone else's vision, not your own. You have to leave your ego at the door, and what you're doing is you're helping them tell their story. That's it. And if you're not comfortable with that, don't do it. Or do an album or something like that to release that pressure or something like that, frustration. So for me, I built up some frustration because, I kind of wanted to do what I wanted to do at that point, and I had some success. And I expected that I would do an album. I'd always talked about I'd like to do an album, maybe write some concert music or something like that. But that's not what happened. What happened is I just kind of got this urge to do something that was less cerebral, that was more tactile and physical, and in a sense, allowed me to kind of shut down my brain a little bit. And I would work outside. It's LA, so my art studio was like partly indoors and partly on this upstairs balcony. So I was outside all the time, and I would apply, start a piece of art, and I would apply, varnish or whatever I'm doing, and then I'd run back down to my music studio, carry on writing that piece of music that I'm doing, and then with a timer goes off, I have to apply the gold leaf. So I ran back upstairs, I do the gold leaf, and then I come back down, I carry on writing music, which sounds a little insane, but at the end of the day, I would feel very fulfilled from both a kind of more intellectually creative point of view, of fine-tuning the psychology, the emotions that are going into this project that I'm writing music for, and at the same time, a very free experience of making art. And the way I make art is very, it is abstract, but it's all to do with allowing natural processes and nature to kind of take charge, and so it set me free in a sense, and I would feel happy, really, because I would feel like I'd been productive in ways that was expressing various parts of my life rather than just one. And what I wanted to say, and this is something that the plan is for me to start bottling this and teaching it, because I think it is a kind of an important thing. And I'm not saying that everybody might have this experience, but I think they can. I visited some kind of A-list composers from time to time, just by coincidence, and I noticed almost invariably that the really top guys, I'm not going to mention him, just looked so fucking miserable, right? And they were on their fifth marriages, and even some of our heroes like Jerry Goldsmith, there's a litany of broken marriages and stuff like that. And their entire life, to be that good, to be the A-list guy, all of it was writing music for film, writing music for film, writing music for film. And I looked at that, and I was going to move to LA at that point, with that intention of becoming, hopefully someone that could gain some traction in Hollywood movies and stuff like that. Was my intention at that point. And I saw that, and I thought, I don't want that. I really don't want that. I don't want that life. And I don't want to give up all the other things that I like to do, like art or whatever it is. And I do so many things. And so I said to myself, which is quite a hard
and you're right. Like most of the people, they're not able to decide what they want to do in their lives. They kill their inner energy or the signals they're getting from the nature that this is the right path or you should begin your journey there. Most of the people kill that feeling and try to, make a lifestyle and make a living. So I completely.
I think some creative jobs, that's honestly what it takes. I mean, it's so difficult. It's so time consuming. And I've not been working at their level, but, I have, for one or two of the Attenborough projects, we worked as my team, 7 weeks straight with no weekends, nothing, and about, 16 to 20 hours a day. And at the end of it, you burn out seriously, and you feel somewhat proud of what you've done, but they didn't, at the end of it, pay that well. And, and you realize, well, if I do want that life, I really want to get as good as, those guys, I have to be 100% focused on this. That's it. That's the only way you can do it. even if you're really, really good. So, so I kind of got off that train and said, I don't want to be a great composer, great film. I don't want to be that. I don't want that life. Cut forward many years later, when I'm doing art, and now I've been doing the Venice Biennale and the London Biennale. I'm doing 15 exhibitions all around the world that year, and seeing the struggles of the artists there to try and sell things. And there it was pay to play at that time. It's post pandemic. We had to pay a lot of money to have a bit of wall space to put up your art in the hope that you would sell it. And if you sold it, then your gallery or wherever it is, your agent or something like that, or the exhibition would take a massive chunk of the money. And it's like, and I was very familiar with the music world already. And I looked at the art world and I thought, wow, that's really messed up. Okay. And I saw that. And I saw also that same thing. It's like, if you want that, you have to be 100% focused, 100% to the exclusion of everything else, including your life. And I said, I'm not willing to sacrifice that much. So I said, I don't want to be a great artist. What I want to be is a great creator. If I can learn and understand and kind of really, really boil it down to what are the essential parts of the creative process, all creative processes, then all doors and windows are open to me. And that's what I've kind of dedicated myself to since that time and for the last 10 years, and which I now want to share with people and interview lots of people. So go ahead. I'm sorry to have interrupted.
That's fine. So if we both from a similar journey, I'm also a creative person at the same time running a business and animation studio. So if we talk about creativity versus business, how do you keep your artistic vision intact while navigating the business side of your career?
I do it by putting the artistic side first, always first. Which is why I think I see what's happening in a sense. We'll talk about it a little bit, with self-promotion and marketing and all that stuff, that fundamentally is taking a lot of energy and time away from the essential thing, which is you have to create stuff. And if you create stuff and it's good, things will flow from there. And so in a sense, I also view, if you like, building and running a business as an equally creative process. I don't make a distinction. For me, you can see this on my Instagram when I came out with this. Life is an art, not a science. So to build a great life or build a great business, in fact, we all have to be artists. So this idea of how to be creative then becomes quite compelling. It's like, and the way I look at it is there was this insidious lie that was told to a majority of people at the end of their high school. They're told, well, if you want that life in finance or law or politics, or whatever it is, you have to give up all these things, all of these creative things. They're not going to serve you. Let's play. It's childish, right? We're going to focus on this. We're going to get into a good college, and then you can have the big house and the job and the wife and the kids, and all of that will roll together. And in a sense, they threw away or negated that part of themselves that could have been and should be their best friend. Because what are you doing in business all the time? What are you asking yourself to do? What are you asking people to do? You're asking them to come out with ideas, right? To innovate, to just blue sky thinking, whatever it is, or product design. All of this is intensely creative. Right? So by negating that part of yourself, I think something that people could really use has been lost. And so the way I work in a sense with my businesses is I fully embody that. I mean, that's my thing. All right. So when I'm in a meeting, and I used to get challenged, with some of the companies I would consult for, and they would see me in a meeting where, we're trying to get the gig. And the way I would do it would be by being extremely generous with my ideas. And so it wouldn't be like a kind of interview. I'd say like, what's the hope for this project? And they'd tell me, it's like, that's great. Have you thought about doing it this way? Have you thought about that? Would that work? And so what I would give them is a taste of what it's going to be like to work with me, which is hopefully engaging in a two-way conversation where we are really, really, thinking up whatever we can, right? All these ideas. And so I was chastised a few times that I was giving too much away, right? And to which, my reply was, because I would build things and bring them in and display them and show them how I made it and stuff. My feeling was like, if they've got the ingenuity, the time, the interest to copy what I've done, power to them. And I would land all those jobs. I would land them because in many ways I was acting as though I already had the job, and I still do it. Like it was recently I was hired to do, some music thing for an audio company, like a commercial thing. And, I did my pitch on Zoom the usual way, like I've just described. And then I got a call from, my friend who works as a producer. And he says to me, I think you did a really good job. I think there's a very good chance we're going to pick you. And I said, what do you mean? I said, I already had this job. I thought this was like, you're just calling me and hiring me. And he said, actually, no, there were some other people in the running, but I think we can safely say that they're not in the running anymore. So it works. I put it to use. And I think a big part of this is always to practice what you preach, right? So you have to be the living, example of this, which means you have to understand, how creativity works and where it should fit into your life, and how to do something that is, in a sense, remarkable because it comes from your subconscious and you can't control that. How to, bring it out as and when necessary on a deadline. And so this is another important thing. And I'll just give one of these, I call them keys to creativity, that came out when someone asked me the question that you asked me. It's like, how do I do all of these different things like art and writing and music? And I was also vice president of Society of Composers and Lyricists. I'm working with people in Congress and AI and all these kind. And they say, how do you do all of these different things? I said, what makes you think they're different? They're not different. They're not different. If you see them as different, then they will be different. I don't see them as different. I'm an aggregator. And the follow-up question was, well, where do you get your inspiration to do all these? And I said, kind of flippantly, oh, you think I need inspiration to do this? I don't need inspiration. I make inspiration. So that's one of the keys. As professionals, we can't afford to wait until inspiration strikes. What we learn is that inspiration comes from within the project. So all you need to do is start and then kind of pay attention to where it's going. And then the ideas start flowing. And that is such an important thing. And almost nobody outside the creative trades knows that you just need to start and then the ideas will come. And that's something, that's an example of one of those things that I want to teach, that I want to share. And there's going to be like maybe 12 or 13 powerful keys to unlock people's processes that they can apply. I don't want to teach creatives. They already know it. I want to teach people in all kinds of businesses, all walks of life, because I am convinced that it will help them make their dream life, help them make their business work better, and also be so much more enjoyable, because what this is play. Okay, so I'll finish the comment on this. There's a quote from Damien Hirst, the British artist, where he explained, I think, in an interview, it's like the difference between us artists and, let's say, you business people out there is, we all played when we were kids. We never stopped playing. I mean, there's a big piece of
yes.
But we never stop playing. I still play. It's play, and play has to be kind of understood as something that is not, the prerogative, and it's something useless that kids do. There's a wonderful TED talk in psychiatrist that explains that play is how we develop our capacity for adaptation as adults. It's extremely powerful, extremely important. Why don't we do it? Why isn't it built into the structure of our businesses? Okay. In some companies it is. Okay, over to you.
All right. So recent partnerships. So if you talk about partnerships, what do you think is essential for forming successful partnership with major brands like Apple, NASA, Meta?
I mean, I think there's an assumption, there's kind of an understanding that if you're being brought into the job, that you can do it. Even it's something, in most cases with VR, we were being asked to do things that not only we'd never done before, but nobody had ever done before. Nobody had ever done before, But with NASA, I had to kind of design and build an 8.1 sound system where 4 speakers firing down from the ceiling and 4 across horizontally at your ankles, so that it left all space there for the projection screen, right? And so I was calling all the engineers I knew, all the brilliant people in spatial audio. It's like, how do you mix with a perpendicular? Like, how do you get into this? And they said, I don't know. I mean, there's some, French companies said you could use R-Tool as a flux thing, or you can kind of, and we looked at it, it was like, that's way too complicated. We can't do that. We're not going to be able to learn it in time. You just have to do it like the old-fashioned way and build a kind of fairly involved Dante system, and built it and tuned it and made it work. Okay, so there is an assumption that you can do the job, and that's kind of nice, and it's exactly what you feel as a composer. All things being equal, you're not being hired as a composer because you're the best person. You're being hired because you know someone. There's a relationship there that brings you into the fold, right? With the assumption that obviously you can do this job. Otherwise, we wouldn't even know you. You wouldn't even come in the door. And that's a good place to, start with. Okay. Then I think really it's about, building those lines of communication. Again, you're supporting someone else's vision. So it's the subjugation of your ego.
It is.
Even if you're the best in the business, whatever, just to say, what do you need me to do? How can I contribute to this? What's your vision? How can I help? And I can give ideas and stuff like that. But fundamentally, I have to be able to take a concept that could be extremely unformed and turn it into something that is tangible and actually works. Okay. And there's many struggles with that. And you just have to accept that, in VR, we'd also say we're on the bleeding edge. We're on the bleeding edge and it's going to be messy. And things are going to break and they're not going to work. And we're going to have to, we'll always be working until like late into the night, to get things working. So I think again, it's kind of what I said before, the act of in these partnerships of them hopefully seeing me and the level of passion and dedication that I'm bringing to every job is the basis of that ongoing relationship during the job and hopefully getting rehired afterwards, because I'm not faking it. I'm fascinated in these things. I want them to work. I'm very much an introvert. So I need to spend like a lot of time alone, which means that when I get out there and actually meet people and spend time with them, talk to them, I love it. I mean, it's like an explosion of ideas and stuff like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
you yourself an introvert person. You're an introvert person.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah,
but after having,
which means
you're talkative. So I thought you were extrovert, but now I realize that you're an ambivert person, not an introvert or an extrovert, an ambivert person.
I talk a lot because the rest of the day I shut up and I don't talk to anybody. So I tend to, when I do meet people, I tend to gush a little bit too much. I'm aware of that. I've been accused of oversharing, but fundamentally, for me, the way I define the difference between an introvert and an extrovert is an extrovert, gets energy from social circumstances. They kind of feed off it to some extent. With me, I can enjoy it and stuff, but it depletes me. And it does that partly because I feel compelled to share a lot, to help and so I have to kind of be a little bit careful not to only deplete myself, but to find time to recharge. And in the end, the creative processes that one does when you're painting or making art or doing music, it's done alone for the most part. Yeah, there are, as I said, the collaborative moments of it, like when you're recording an orchestra. But fundamentally, it's something, ideas come alone. That inspiration we're talking about.
They do. Yeah. So if you talk about,
you're getting this. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No,
I was just going to say, hopefully you're kind of getting this theme that, in a sense, I'm not willing, and it's not my nature anyway, to look at business as something that is wholly different, that demands a whole different skill set. And I'm glad that's working out for me because I have no knowledge. I never studied business. I studied neuroscience. I don't know anything about it. I'm not very good at, numbers. I'm dyslexic and I'm dyscalculic. So but there's many ways of doing it. And I think fundamentally, if you have developed or you have naturally the ability to put passion into something and curiosity into that thing and willing to work hard, willing to collaborate with people, which again, not about the ego. Like I'll collaborate or bring that person in, they know more than you. Have these wonderful interactions with you, kind of then create and build something. Then the other part of it is, imagination, conceptual thinking. All of these things to me are artistic skill sets, right? In the end,
imagination is the key. Imagination is the key. We create our own reality. We have to live in the imagination, and whatever we think, that becomes reality. So, you're right.
So, in a sense, I guess what I'm telling you, quite simply, is I think personally the best way to build and run a business is from your creative instincts, from your creative self. And yes, there will be times where there's some level of administration that you need to do, but maybe you don't need to do it that way. Maybe you can come up with something different, for the circumstance.
Agree, 100%. So if we get to the marketing and the media presence and brand building, how do you approach marketing yourself across various platforms and industries?
So this is kind of tricky. So initially, I should say that something like medium like Instagram or Facebook is
Mm-hmm.
very visual, right? So
It is.
for all the years I was a composer, I didn't see like a natural way to put my music up there. I had a website that was very good if you want to see listen to my music.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't seem to be a good fit. Once I started doing art, it's like, okay, I could take pictures of the art, I put it on Instagram and Facebook, and now people can see it, make sense a little bit. But I think, in a sense, I kind of doing art, doing music is fundamentally about having the freedom to do kind of what you want, and the act of let's say branding it one way or another. I hate the idea of it. People write to me all the time and say, "Want to brand me?" It's like, I don't want to be branded. I mean, I'm like this today. Tomorrow I'll be different. I don't want to be this one thing. I don't want to be, simplified like that, and I don't want to be seen through these drastically oversimplified viewpoints. And so, I think this experience of freedom and expansion is, in a sense, it's directly in contrast to a lot of what marketing is about. Paradoxically, marketing is in a sense, it's the enemy. And I think Rick Rubin kind of puts it really well in his latest book, his book on creativity, where he says, you do your creativity for yourself, right? It's your art is for yourself.
Yeah.
If you start doing the art in a way that you think is what your audience is going to like,
yes,
that's commerce. That's not art. That's commerce. You shifted into that, and always to be like very aware. Now I've done that. I've done, I wrote the IMAX theme and Hulu Originals theme. I've done that, and I enjoy it too. But I don't delude myself that what I'm doing necessarily is art. There is some artistic skills or whatever that go in it, but I've crossed that line. Okay, so I think marketing. I've kind of. I'll be very honest with you. I've spent some time on LinkedIn recently, and I was, looking around and seeing what jobs were out there. I was just curious, not because I want one. I'm just like, what's out there? And really, what you see is a lot of marketing jobs. It seems the only jobs that are out there anymore: marketing, digital marketing, this kind of marketing. Right? We'll do this for you. We'll do that for you. It's like, and I look at that and I think, and the salaries. I mean, they're going up to like $300,000-$400,000. Okay, now I would also see every now and then composer needed, sound designer. And the word that was before each one of them was volunteer composer, volunteer sound designer. Yeah. Why is that? Why is that fair? And I actually wrote to one of these companies and asked for an answer. I said, I'm at the time vice president of Society of Composer and Lyricists, and we exist in a sense to try to bring some, equitable ways that people can work across various industries, and this is completely flies in the face of everything we're trying to do. Why do you think that it's okay? Among us musicians, we always laugh at this story. It's like, someone offers you a gig and they can't pay you. They say, oh, you'll get some exposure. So I want to do the same thing for them. Maybe it's some service industry or marketing people. And I said, I'd love you to, run my social media. And I said, yeah, okay, that's great. Let's discuss the terms. I said, yeah, you're going to be a volunteer because I think you're going to get practice. You're going to get some exposure. They would go nuts. They're like, what do you think this is? I mean, I studied this. Like, so did I, right? I've worked on this incessantly. Why is this devaluation of creativity to the extent that you can't even earn a living? And that all the jobs I've seen in the last couple of months on LinkedIn against everything else, which is marketing, they're unpaid. All right. So there's something wrong there. Yeah, go ahead.
So the industry changes you just mentioned about marketing. From your perspective, what significant shifts you have observed in media marketing today, and how should new creators adapt?
That's I feel like, in a sense, that's a little outside of my kind of field of knowledge, because again, I don't know about marketing, as you've heard. I don't hold it up as something that is, like the winner, the be all and end all. It's not. It's just, let's call it what it is. It's like making some calls. It's like making some connections, or just getting yourself out there. And I am a fan of like, and I've told many people that, I've worked with or produced their songs, it's like, it doesn't matter how good you are if you don't exist out there, if you don't have some kind of a footprint, So it is important at that level, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. It is not more important, and that's when you look at Spotify, who's like, wants to, diminish the percentage that we are getting paid. And so when they're paying themselves, millions of dollars at the executive level and stuff like that. Now let's do something with Spotify or the other, comparable things. Let's take all our music back. Okay, let's take all our music back. Now what are you going to do? Right? You don't have a product. You don't have anything, and this everything. So in a sense, everything is on its head for me, and it's very troublesome. It's why I put a lot of time in a kind of activist sense to try to point this out and do something about it. So for me, marketing should be, get behind the queue. Creativity, we're at the front of the queue because we can do anything, right? We can design,
absolutely.
We can innovate, we can do anything. And
we are the innovators, we are the thinkers, we are the imaginators. We create everything. Right. So marketing should be at the back.
And when it comes down to it, we have to step into that role, which is something, I'm kind of promoting these days, since becoming involved even on some political levels. Let's look at the world. Fundamentally, our leaders have failed. They failed us. They failed to create a harmonious world that is combating climate change. Or they have failed, and they continue to fail. Right, both sides, wherever. Right. So, who does it fall upon next to try? It falls upon everyone. But who has ideas? Who knows how to conceptualize things? Who isn't afraid of taking risks and making fools of themselves and all of that kind of stuff? So I think there has been in the past, and I think there should be now. There's a place for artists to kind of up the ante and say, all right, I'll try to be a visionary of this if I can. I'll help in any way I can.
So if we talk about... Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm doing.
If we talk about challenges, you have worked with many notable projects, The Wild Dreams, Manhattan Night, Trust the Tall Man. What challenges you face while you were working on those projects?
When you're working on projects where, again, it's someone else's vision, and in many of those cases, I haven't even met those people. So you're trying to effectively get into their brains and try to understand what it is they want. And if they communicate it to you well enough, then that's good. But I think as composers, we have to be able to ask good questions, because the main challenge comes if we don't really understand what they want. And then we go ahead, we write something that is totally off the mark. And that's not going to work. And it's going to break that trust. And that's a problem. So it's about, again, like, communication aspect is huge. And then secondly, and most importantly, and this is a mistake that, all young composers made, I made it, is they want to show off. They want to show off their chops, right? So they do a piece of music that is frankly wonderful, but it's just not working because there's so much dialogue in that. They don't sit together, and it's because they put their ego into it. So the other challenge, which is something that you learn over time, is to kind of back off a bit and realize that less is more. And, and that what I consider, let's say, a successful experience in a film or TV project is when I don't get asked to do too many revisions, right? Because then you have to do it again. You're taking up more time. It's hard work. You have to turn this revision around in a weekend or this and that. Where it's going well, it kind of flows, and like, you got it right because you listened and you understood. So the challenge is to make sure that you've understood what they want, and however you can get that information. And usually you do this in a spotting session, but you need to ask the right questions. You need to learn these things.
Yes.
And I'm going to be like many people. I don't really, I welcome challenges. Like, I like dreams. I like nightmares too. I love nightmares. I welcome challenges because those are the points of growth, right? And I think in creativity, you have to exist and live a little bit outside your comfort zone. You have to. All right. So that kind of unease is part of the life, which does lead to things like, mental health problems, anxiety, depression. It's very much bound together. There's some really interesting, books on this. So I think those are the challenges. Like, they ultimately, for me, and I think for quite a lot of people, they become challenges kind of beating yourself up, right? Challenges of self-esteem and feeling like I don't have it, or I don't know how to do this, or it's just so hard, or I'm going to fuck this up, and the self-limiting beliefs and all those things which we all have, they run counter to what you're trying to do, which is like this free, fun, risk taker and stuff like that. And many of us, we're not like that. We're anxious, neurotic people, So I think that's the challenge that I always face is confronting myself, and who I am and why am I doing this? And is this any good? Or am I completely off track with this? And then hoping for the best that,
the question of why, curiosity of everything, that gets you everything which you want to do in your life. So I completely understand. Now, do you have any advice for youngsters?
One more thing. I've got lots of advice for young people.
I'm enjoying this conversation, and it's impressive. Yeah.
So another challenge that comes about is, there are moments where, you've written something, and the director kind of wants something else because they've become attached to the temp track, usually. Temp love, we call it. It's one of the big challenges. It's one of the big difficulties that we face is they've kind of fallen in love with a particular piece of music that was written by, I don't know, John Williams and whoever, Trent Reznor. And they see the piece of film as so tightly wound around that piece of music. They want you to effectively copy the music, right? And that's difficult to confront because on the one hand, contractually, it's the composer that's liable, right? If you're plagiarizing, they don't get sued or whatever. We do, okay? So there are times when you have to kind of stand up for yourself and say, I'm not willing to do that. And I've done it a couple of times. And it's very difficult. It's like, oh, really? You don't want to do it? I was like, no, sorry. I don't want to go to, I don't want to get sued for this. And I ask them these kind of questions to get around that. I'll say to them this, it's kind of flippant again. I was told to say it by someone else. Like, so can I ask you a question? Your script, did you copy that from someone? Did you get it from someone else, right? And it was like the script of another film, you just stuck it in there. And they go, no, I mean, absolutely not. I wrote the script. It's like very important to me. I said, well, why do you want me to copy someone else rather than have a bespoke piece of music written for your film that is different to everywhere else? And then you learn that there are times when you have to fight for something that you really believe in, that this should be this, or you should leave it at that alone because it's working. And other times where you have to say, all right, so you pick your battles, and that's another difficult one. Go ahead.
So any advices for young entrepreneurs, youngsters who are hustling and trying to do something and make a living for themselves?
I'm going to go back to the first thing, which we've been talking about. Go back and dig into your capacity for play and unleash the creativity, and make sure you're always at least one step outside your comfort zone, and that you're taking risks. And you're taking risks because look where your fear is. Wherever your fear is, that's where you want to go. Because you go towards your fear when you're at your most vulnerable is where you do your best work, right? And also, in fears in general, you cannot bypass them. At some point, you've just got to go in. And usually it's not as scary as it. Right. So look for your fears, take those risks, stay outside your comfort zone, rekindle your creativity, and realize that that is your best friend, not something that should be, just subjugated as something that's like, I'm listening to music here after work and see. And then, I think, there's a whole host of other things I would say. Let me just, I had something and it's drifted out of my head, but I think, as, I remember what it was. Yeah. And again, this is where maybe it's something we talked about right at the beginning before we started recording. Maybe this flies in the face a little bit of what marketing and what advertising has for the longest period of time, which is by being 100% your most honest, 100% of the time, by being your most authentic, you're going to get hired based on who you are, the real you. And I've been reading again on LinkedIn about people saying, go to this interview and create a persona that aligns with the values of this company. And they said that's how to do it professionally. So that's not professional at all. It's lying, and you're going to get hired for something that maybe you're not equipped to do. And my attitude is, I don't want to work with anyone that doesn't want to work with me. But we're only going to find that out if I'm honest, right? If I express my values, and if they don't like it, okay, we can agree to differ, and maybe this is not the right place for me. So I kind of beg people to try that out, and it's not as hard as it seems. The caveat that I always put in, that I tell people is 100% honesty, 100% of the time, but you can withhold information. You don't have to say something you're not comfortable saying. You can say, I just don't really want to talk about that now. I don't really want to share that. It's just, that's a bit off limits. But when you do talk, you know that everything that you've said to whoever it is in your life is the truth, which means you never have to think about, what did I say to them, or what did I say to them, or did I make up, did I aggrandize, who we are, something like that. No, I didn't. I just told the truth. And that makes life, firstly, a lot more easy, peaceful. And again, you'll find yourself aligned with and working with the people that, kind of share that particular set of values, or like where you're coming from, because you've been outspoken about it. And I think what I'm seeing when I'm talking to entrepreneurs and business people is this, this teaching, I don't know where they get it from, of kind of effectively creating some kind of a, this false persona, and kind of living behind that, and then being a different person when you go home, and a different person when you go to the gym and play sports or this and that. And then you've got this kind of congress of personas, and it's not good for you, because you get lost. Like the essential part of you gets lost in the middle of that. You lose who you are. So it's a huge risk. It looks like a huge risk, but it's not. It's actually a really good way of life. And I really believe that if you apply that into business, you're going to connect with people well. You're going to form relationships easily, because they can tell that you're not bullshitting. Anybody can tell. One of the reasons I do it is I'm a terrible liar. I always was. Like, everybody knows. Like, this is a waste of time making things out. I might as well just tell them. No, I didn't finish it. I need another day. I'm sorry.
I really enjoyed this amazing, insightful conversation with you, Joel. Absolutely, right. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, viewers, for tuning in to another episode of Prolific Perspectives. We hope you enjoyed this insightful conversation with Joel Douek and took away some valuable lessons. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Until next time, stay tuned. Take care. Bye-bye.